On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to properly clean your rims and your wheel wells in anticipation for winter and after winter. I'm talking like crazy person clean. That and a lot more coming up on this episode of Drive and Protect. All the way in so that they sit on top of each other. Oh, touch-up paint on. Can hear it. Okay, before we get started, there's some obvious things I need to point out. One, you need to lift the car up and use a jack stand, or in this case, I'm using my fancy quick jack system. So normal jack you've seen me do 1,000 times. You just got to make sure everything is flat, put up a jack stand, all the safety things you're supposed to say, do that. In this case, it's pretty cold outside, so I'm working indoors, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later. I want to point out something kind of cool. If you see the quick jack system, you see how it actually, when it folds down and folds up, there's an angle to it, so it angles forward or angles backwards. And now in this case, I had to spend a little bit of time when I was putting this together and using it on the car itself. Sometimes the wheel, when the wheel was on, pretend the wheel is on, it would actually hit this spot right here, and I couldn't get the wheel off. And the reason was I needed to swap sides. So you can go diagonal, and you can take one of these and switch to the other side. The only thing you need to make sure you keep in mind is, can you see this here, the safety bar? You have to keep the safety bar towards the outside. So just bear that in mind if you're using quick jack. If you're using a normal jack stand, just forget about that part, but I did run into some issues with that. So what I want to say before we get started with the actual steps is I use this technique for a couple different things. One, if I'm going to a car show and I want it to be like crazy clean, or slash, I just want to clean my car because it's Sunday and you got whatever reason, this is when I would use this technique. Put that to the side. More importantly, I have to use it before winter and after winter. So what does that mean? I want to clean all this stuff out, and I want to be able to see anything that may be leaking or maybe exposed or could potentially rust, etc. Before winter. Plus, I'm going to show you how to give it a fighting chance, let's put it that way. So that'll be a little bit later. And I do that on the front and the back. So it's very important to take the wheels off. Having said that, if you can't take all four off, the only difference between taking all four off and doing one at a time like I used to do in the past is it's not any better or ineffective. It just takes more time. So this is more efficient. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's a little bit of a little bit of homework or due diligence before we actually get started with the steps. But I wanted to make that clear, do everything safe. And the reason we're doing this is obviously to clean it and make you feel good and all those kind of things. But even more importantly, prep for a concours, which is fun, but really prep for winter. This is very, very important. So before winter and after winter, very key. All right, so let's get into the steps. All right, so I filled up my bucket with some warm water and Brute, and I have all my tools, and now I pulled the wheels outside. Now, if you're already outside, well, then you just solved that problem, but it's super cold here, and I want to work inside most of the time, but if I'm doing this kind of stuff, it's easier out here. So first thing you want to do is not rinse them down. A lot of people will take a power washer and rinse them down immediately. That's logical in most cases. For this particular type of clean, you want to let the cleaner do the work. What do I mean by that? Well, it's windy and cold. What I mean by that is the cleaner is going to be fighting against the water. So you're actually diluting the cleaner. In this particular case, I don't usually like to do that. If I'm washing it and the wheels are on the car, fine, power wash it, use a regular hose. I'm just giving you a little tip here. So I'll basically do 2 rims at a time, because you don't want to let this sit for too long because you will be spending some time. Again, this is the preliminary wash. We're going to pull it back inside so I don't freeze to death after this part. And then we're going to go, bananas, and I'll show you the next couple steps. So for all intents and purposes, you're going to use whatever cleaner. This is Ammo Plum. I'm going to come in here, spray down. Woo! It's cold. Really kind of get in there. And obviously the backside. Look how gross this backside is. And you're going to let it sit just for a little bit of time, but not too much. Maybe, a minute or two. Again, you're working in steps here. Once the undiluted cleaner has had a chance to work the baked on brake dust, then I first use my wheel brush to agitate all the tight areas before using my wheel mitt on the larger surfaces. Afterwards, I like to quickly brush the tread for 2 reasons. First is to check for any lodged rocks, uneven wear, or obvious nails, etc. The second is with the soap on the tread, a non-obvious slow leak will bubble up, letting you know where it is. The truth is, I'm not sure if this is a good habit or just my obsessive behavior, but nonetheless, I always take an extra second and inspect the tread. Then I give it a healthy rinse and move it inside. Okay, now that the wheels are clean, you bring them inside, you notice they're still wet. The next step is going to be to clay them. All right, so you're going to take a clay bar, and inside this the little container here, I have old pieces of clay. This is an old piece of clay. When you're working on a wheel, you are going to be using an old piece of clay. If it happens to be new, meaning you don't have an old one sitting around, it's going to be old after that. So do not use it on the paint. So anything that touches the wheels does not touch the paint. Same thing with the wheel bucket and the paint bucket. For soap, for washing, that sort of thing. Same idea. So you can use spray wax. I start with the outside first, meaning the part that you see, because typically that's not as bad. Why? Because we're crazy and we clean it up better than we do the inside. So just do this very quickly on the outside. The meat and potatoes is going to be on the the inside of the rim. So work this one wheel at a time, and I'll show you what the inside looks like. I spent about 10-15 minutes claying it, and I have to say it's pretty therapeutic and fun, but it did pull up just a huge amount of gunk, and it's looking pretty good. I'm very happy with it. But before we take it over to the bench and go really nuts on it, the next thing is use compressed air. If you have it, use a leaf blower, whatever it is that you have, because we really want to get this thing dry. Take an old microfiber towel. This is never going to be used on the paint again, obviously. This is just a wheel towel. And go through this and dry everything off, and then we're going to take this, now that's been freshly clayed, meaning all those surface contaminants, everything that's on the surface, just like your paint, has been removed. And it's pretty smooth. Is it perfect right now? No, but I'll show you the next step to make it perfect after this thing is dry. Okay, this is where things start to take a little bit of a turn for the crazy. So now I've put this up on my bench, so I have nice access to it. We've washed it. We've scrubbed it really, really well. So there's a difference between washing and scrubbing as far as I'm concerned. Then we clayed it, and that brought out a lot of junk, but there's still stuff. When you clay it, like when you clay your paint, and this just goes on to a different thing. When you're claying your paint, you're basically, think of it like those Biore strips, as teenagers use, and they peel them off their nose and it has little black heads in it. That's the same idea as clay. Clay's peeling up stuff that embedded into the paint. Got it? When you're polishing or you're compounding and you're using an abrasive, you're actually grinding, what I call leveling the paint. So they're kind of two different philosophies. So clay is not going to take out scratches. So keep that in mind. What we're going to do next is a little bit nuts. And like I said before, this is like once or twice a year, or if you're insane, do it before a car show or a concours. We're going to take a 3-inch with a 3-inch microfiber cutting pad. And if you notice, you can see that. Is that the grossest pad you've ever seen? Yes. Well, first of all, they've discontinued these. So big heads up on that. I'm not exactly sure why that happened, but nonetheless, that is a gross pad. That's good, because this pad is never going to be used on the paint. It's only going to be used for junky stuff. Pretty much I'm throwing this away. The fibers here, not the fibers, the foam is going bad anyway. So this is junk. So I don't really care what it looks like. We're going to take, because it's going to get dirty in 2 seconds, we're going to take either 205, and in this case, I'm going to take D300. It's a little bit more cut than 205. And what you want to do is, this is not going to be pretty, by the way, and I definitely don't care. We are going to exfoliate, but in a different kind of way, the paint in here. So the clay could only get so much, right? It peeled off all the nasty stuff, like the blackheads. This is going to get into the paint and really kind of scrub and get all this crap out. But having said that, I'm going to ruin this pad, so just be heads up on that. So this is where it takes a turn for the loony. I'm going to put it on 3 or 4. What can you see? I'll do over here. Okay, so I stopped that early because it's taking off a lot of the black stuff. So a bunch of times when I've clayed in years past, sometimes black spots come off with the clay and sometimes they don't. Pretty much 99% of spots like that, like rubber or some weird stuff in the wheels that you can't get off, usually comes off with a microfiber cutting pad. Now I've done that on a race car years ago, one of my first YouTube videos on a yellow Mustang from my buddy Matt. And I showed you how to take off sticker residue. It's the same kind of idea. Anyways, I'm gonna pull the camera in because this is too cool. It's taking off all this black stuff. So the next step is spend some time, and you're going to use a 3-inch microfiber pad and go crazy on these. So let's do that, and then I'll show you the next step. All right, when you're all finished, it's going to look pretty amazing and actually quite shiny. A lot of you are going to be asking, all right, why did you not do it to the outside? You mean the part where people see of the rim? The difference is, it's two different philosophies. The answer is you can do it, but if you're going to compound or use D300 or something like 105, something that's got a strong abrasive in it, you're then going to have to polish it. And it's just like doing, kind of a paint, for lack of a better word. It's the same thing here. My philosophy in cleaning these was just to get the junk out. So when you're using D300 or 105, I like D300 for this specifically, a lot of lubrication in there. I use the microfiber cutting pad just to kind of get beneath everything. So basically it's another cleaning method as opposed to a polishing method. By default, I mean, it looks pretty ridiculously shiny right now for a car that goes to the track and the whole thing. I'm pleased with this. Is it perfect? No, but it's very clean. There are some stains or some damage in there that totally makes sense. But in terms of cleanliness, you can eat off this thing right now. So the next step is, where'd it go? Is to take a wheel wax. This case, obviously I'm using mine. It's gelée. It's supposed to be jelly. So a lot of people say, oh, it doesn't feel like wax. It doesn't look like wax. Well, look, it's goopy. It's gelée, it's jelly. So basically you take a couple gobs of it like this, put it in your hands. Again, dropped a little bit. You can put it on a rag or a foam applicator as well. But essentially, get it into every nook and cranny, as they say. The big thing with this is you want to just lay it on. I mean, really put it on as thick as you can. In some cases, I'll actually leave a light layer on. We're going to do 2 or 3 coats of this, but I'll leave a light layer on before I'm done, for winter purposes, because you can't really see in there. It depends on the style rim and how crazy you are. But if you leave a thin coat on here and not take it off, it helps. You'll see when you put water in there and break it really comes off, especially for winter. So you're going to do this a few times and really get that in there. And then you're going to do all 4 rims. So you're going to do all 4 rims, put this all in there, and then let it sit for a while. So once they're sitting, so all 4 rims will be sitting here, they're done, they're perfect. Now you're putting on the protection. Man, this is kind of addicting too, in a fun way. You're going to put protection on it and then let it sit. Now we're going to go play with the undercarriage, which is going to be super fun. Okay, now we're over here at the suspension while the wheels are sitting back on the bench and they're drying with the gelée wheel wax on there. Give it some time, let it do its thing. Focus on this. Now, a lot of you are saying, hey, why don't you wash it when you're outside? That's a great idea. I would have probably washed it outside if it wasn't so cold. Plus, I'm inside and it's nice and warm now and I have my garage and it's not a big deal. So I'll show you how to wash it. You basically just get a little pan, stick it like that, stick it underneath, and now you can wash it and anything sits in there, you can throw it away properly. So I have my wheel bucket here, and a lot of you might be asking, hey, why don't you just go crazy with Plum? The truthful answer is you can do it. You can absolutely do it. But I'm also trying to think of, put myself in your shoes, like the way I was before I started manufacturing my own stuff. I've already used like a quarter of it on all the wheels. It's a lot of stuff. I don't want to go through a whole bottle on one. That seems crazy. Thank you if you do, but I don't think that that's necessarily fair. So I'll give a few squirts of Plum here. It is safe. If you have carbon ceramics, don't do any of this on carbon ceramics. Check with your owner's manual. That's a whole other ball of wax. You can use just regular car soap and you'd be fine, but you're not going to get any of this brake dust with those carbon ceramics. So anyways, for the rest of us, the rest of the 99% who have steel rotors, you can use this technique. So what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of Plum, and the other thing is when you power wash them down, a lot of this junk will come off, but same time it's wet, and so it kind of deceives the eye as well. So there's some pluses and minuses. I would never say don't power wash it and clean the rims while it's on the car. You can do that, and that's totally makes sense for 99% of the time, but not in this one. I don't think so. I'll take a little bit of Plum, just a touch. Let it sit there while it's doing its thing. So while it's doing its thing, let's have a conversation. This is kind of cool. This is a bottle of water. So what I do is take it out. Now I take wheel soap, which got a lot of power to it. Take the wheel soap, pour it into. Do you see that? I'll try to get a close up of that. Then you take this guy, stick it in, and you can give it a shake. And obviously it'll turn sudsy. So this is the water that I'll use while I'm cleaning, and I'll show you the technique. Wow, this thing's turning crazy purple. So let me pull the camera in and show you, and look, it's dripping right in the bucket. Pretty easy. So this is kind of the quick little technique of how to do that. So let me pull the camera in and show you this cool little thing turning blue. That was kind of fun. The way this technique works is you take in your left hand, if you're righty, you're gonna find a little brush. I like to use I have a little one and a big one. Yeah, we'll use a little one. And then you're gonna squirt at the same time as you're washing. Ooh, baby. So the pressure from the little squirter is actually helping you as you're using this little brush to get in all the little spots here. Now with brakes, I'm always a little bit more, I have to tell you, this is like the most satisfying thing in the whole wide world. Now I'm gonna take my brute, go here with my wheel bucket, clean my suspension. Oh wow, that was really dirty. Look at that. And the wheel well itself. Now I have a lot of these cool Q-tips that have a bit of like a cotton ball on the end, for lack of a better word, where I can get into these tight areas. I'll show you on my desky. It's sort of like a fancy toothpick, but it's for the automotive industry. It's really kind of, it's very useful to get into these tiny spots that even my tiny little brushes can't get into. I use them in conjunction. Put that down, and I get that guy in there like this. Okay, once you feel like you've cleaned it enough, or your psychosis has taken over, and you want to be done with it, you can take a little hose like I have here, just a little bit, and spray it down. Again, it's all being caught right now. Now, granted, I'm doing this because it's freezing outside, but obviously if you did this in the driveway, if you're allowed to do that, it would make a whole lot more sense. But this is easy, and if anything drips on the floor, it's easy. Just kind of clean it off because of the new floor. Another great reason to have this thing. But anyways, a quick rinse like this. Then we're going to use compressed air and yeah, dry it off, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so we're all set. This thing looks absolutely spectacular. It's a huge before and after, and I'm very happy. But you can probably hear in my voice, I of course found something, I'm telling you guys, hey, make sure you look, and all the things I'm telling you, and sure enough, my own words come back to me. But do you see this spot right here? I saw this before, but I didn't think it was this bad. It's just starting to oxidize a little bit, so that's concerning to me. So what I think I'm gonna do, I'm not 100% sure. I may either repaint this spot, like literally with touch up, and it's not gonna look very pretty, but I don't care, it's right here. And I'll explain what happened. Or I might re-undercoat it, because this, all this, rubbery stuff comes from the factory, and I burned it off. And the reason I burned it off is back when I had my 18s. Was it the 18s? It was either the 18s or my slicks, because my slicks are pretty wide. When you turn when you're on a racetrack, if you ever drive a real race car, not a street race car, the steering wheel only turns this much. And the reason it doesn't do that is because the fenders, you have these big, massive tires. The more rubber you have on there, the better. Anyways, I scratched, I hit that on the track, and I could smell rubber, and that's why we had to, roll these fenders as well. Anyways, sorry, my brain is going while on camera. So the next step that you're going to do, pretend that's addressed right now, because I'm going to have to play with that later, is you take a ton of tire dressing. And you take a ton of tire dressing, and you're going to massage it in, and do all the plastics and all these areas here. Now, if it was I'll do the rest of that in a minute. If it was a concours event, you'd say, yeah, that makes sense, because there's a lot of contrast, and I'll show you the before and after. It's going to look crazy. But the other reason is, in winter, if you keep up with this and you put a lot on and let it sit overnight, and I'm going to let this whole thing dry just because, I'm digging my new garage here. A lot of the sand and salt and all the junk that happens during winter is going to hit here, and there's usually a little bit of water involved with the snow and all the crap that's on the ground. It hits there and it rolls off, because it's going to be very hydrophobic in there. Now, if you have that carpet, I've heard of people doing this. I'm not recommending this. I've heard of people doing this where they put something like WD-40 or some sort of penetrating oil or something that's hydrophobic to water, an oil-based something, and they spray it into those little fibers. The reason those fibers are there, by the way, that's with carpet, is to reduce the road noise, like in Escalades and things like that. But you have to hit it. It's a pain in the butt to clean out. Believe me, we've all been there. So yeah, you can do that as well. But this is old school, and it has the plastic and whatnot. So I'll show you a little bit before and after, and the depth and the color and the shine that comes out, especially after the wheels are all set. So let's finish this. I have one little tiny step before we put the wheels on and then are done. But it should take you a good afternoon, and it's very healthy to do, specifically because you find things that the guy who's on the camera and preaches to you. Oh, I actually found, anyways, I found one live on camera, which is fun. But yeah, let's finish this, and I'll show you the last little crazy psycho step. And you're good to go. You're asking yourself, what else could you possibly clean with the wheels and, of course, the brakes? Well, there's the lug nuts, of course. 5 of them right here. Now, in the past, what I used to do is put them in this pickles jar. And by the way, if you don't like pickles on your sandwich, you're crazy. But it's all wearing off. But I used to put them all in at once, take them all out, and put them back on. Seems pretty reasonable, right? The problem is, I wasn't able to keep track of which lug nuts went where, and I think maybe it's superstition, but maybe not. I think they fit better on the wheels that they're supposed to go on, if that makes sense. So anyways, I have this other little way of cleaning them, is I put them in their own, I use DR, meaning driver rear, driver front, PR, passenger rear, and passenger front, the one that we're working on right now. So what I end up doing is taking a little bit of that cleaner that we played with before. So this is Water and Brute. I fill it up a little bit. I put these in together like such. Matter of fact, take me all day doing it this way. I pour them out and fill this thing up to let them soak. Because there's not a whole lot of scrubbing you can do to these things, but I'm gonna have to take this cardboard off at some point. So I put the little top on and I give it a shake. And this, the thing's got little holes in it or whatever, but I leave them in here. As you can see that. Where's the name? There's the name. So this is the passenger side front. So when I'm all done, I take them and make sure that they're on the same exact area. But anyways, I fill up all these things and I let them sit there. And I usually let them sit there when I'm doing the tires. So anyways, that is how I clean the lug nuts. And you can kind of come in here with your little brushes afterwards and really go crazy. But I don't like to go too nuts on these, because once they're good, just kind of leave them alone. But I do like to clean up a lot of the excess boogers that are on there. You know my word, and boogers. All right, so while these are sitting here, let's go back, take the wax off this guy, and because we put 2 coats on, I did the other one off camera, put 2 coats on, and then mount them. We're good to go for winter. All right, well, we're finished. Check this out. The before and after is nuts. This thing is so clean, and this one is obviously really, really gross. I had a blast shooting this. On a side note, some of my favorite things about detailing cars is vacuuming. I have no idea why. And the second favorite thing I love to do is cleaning wheels and suspension. It's like a kind of geek out moment. There's really, look at that. It's like a piece of artwork. Okay, so let me go over a couple of quick points and then we'll get out of here. First, when you're putting plumb on the tire, my suggestion to you is to not wet the wheel down. In this kind of crazy scenario that we're talking about right now, don't wet the wheel down. Why? Because the water dilutes the cleaner. In this case, you want the cleaner to really kind of get in there, but you need to keep an eye on it. Don't let it go too long. So keep that in mind. Number 2, when you're claying the wheel, you're gonna get out a lot of that Bure example, that blackheads. You're gonna get a lot of that stuff out, but you won't get all of it out. To get it all out, like I did in this video, I use a microfiber cutting pad. Oh, keep in mind, I think I may have said it, but Meguiar's is discontinuing their 3-inch microfiber cutting pad. So keep that in mind. I'm not gonna throw mine out. I'll clean it and keep it for just wheels, because once you use it on the wheels, you can't use it on the paint. And in that case, I use D300. So kind of like a little bit heavier than a polish, but not a full compound. So again, keep that in mind. Next, I put gelée on the rims. There's my knee going bad right now. Gelée on the rims, I did 2 coats. And then because this is a light colored rim, I left a little bit on there. So you can't even see it. Can you see that? You can't even see it because it's light colored. Now, if this is a black rim, you might see a little bit of it because it dries white. Does that make sense? So I left it on there as like an extra little layer. That's just a little tip for you. Mud. You put mud on the wheel wells in there. The reason you do that, and you put it on pretty thick, and I'm going to do a second coat, that's why I'm not putting the wheels on just yet, is to have the water and the salt and all the crap that you're going to get in winter, it'll flush out much better. Lug nuts. I don't like to separate them into like, or I mean, I like to separate them. I don't put them all into one because then I forget which one went where. I let them soak in brute and then just dry them off with you know, a towel or some air before you put them on. Lastly, I didn't, as you notice here, put tire shine on here. And the reason I didn't put tire shine on is I'm gonna mount them in a few minutes and I don't need to film me mounting them. You guys have seen people mount tires before. But if you put them on, obviously you're gonna be greasy and you're gonna be sliding all over the place, and I touch things and touch the paint. Like, don't do that. If you're going to leave them overnight out and leave the car like this overnight, totally cool. Put dressing on there, let it penetrate, and then in the morning you can put it on, no sweat. So anyways, very much appreciate you guys watching. This is super exciting. Of course, if you have any questions, shoot me an email at larry@AMMONYC.com or visit my website, AMMONYC.com, for more insane, crazy people videos. But the before and after is like, it's kind of bonkers. Anyways, I had a blast shooting this. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.